when a man is educated and informed.
He is so dreamy, always reading books and investigating history.
Where do you think he works out?
The library.
He is so controversial, always talking about 9/11 being an inside job, the police state, constitutional rights, ancient history, government cover-ups, and how he thinks sports don't matter in real life.
Oh, I love a freethinker who searches for truth. I love it when he feeds my brain. What's his name? Kristan T. Harris.
One of the stupidest moon hoaxer sayings is, "Who filmed this?" Like it's some sort of gotcha, but using a few brain cells, it is easy to find an actual answer with just a few minutes of searching. During the Apollo 17 mission, the liftoff of the lunar module from the moon's surface was indeed captured by a television camera mounted on the lunar rover. Astronauts Eugene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt deployed the camera on the rover and aimed it at the lunar module before they left the surface.
Do you think we went to the moon?
Yeah, I do. I believe we went to the moon, but we lied about it. And what I mean by that is, yes, we went to the moon, but when you analyze several things, the footage, you see a mix of real footage and you see a mix of artificial footage.
That's my thinking too.
Now, why is that? I had to dig into this deeper. They discovered on the moon that there were artificial structures. There's evidence of war on the moon. There's debris laying all over the place. The moon mission was a reconnaissance mission, and the race to the moon between us and Russia was who's going to get their hands on that ancient technology first and bring it back and reverse engineer it. That's what the whole moon mission was all about. And that's why they show you this barren landscape, fake video. Meanwhile, it's all about getting the technology that's laying around. China sent a rover up there, and it got stuck in the debris. It transmitted an image back before they can delete it. And that went worldwide. It was global. That was like 5 years ago. I went and researched the Clementine mission. It was a military, former top secret mission that became declassified. And as soon as I saw the name Clementine, I knew what it meant. It never came back. Oh, my darling Clementine, you were lost and gone forever. I said, come on. I knew this thing didn't come back, and it never came back. It was a low lunar orbit mission to go around the moon in a low lunar orbit. When it got to the backside, what they call the dark side of the moon, it crashed into something. But on its way there, it transmitted gigs of images back, which was made publicly available. And those images have a lot of anomalies in them, things that shouldn't be there. So we know for a fact that there's something going on with the moon for real. We got the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, on the black box audio from Apollo 11. The astronaut is looking, what's his name? Neil Armstrong. He's looking down. He says, look at those concave structures down there. I bet the people down there never get out. That's on the black box audio from Apollo 11. He wasn't joking. What people? What is he talking about? And why would he say that form of a structure will make a dome, not a crater?
You have to do this. The way Neil Armstrong is describing the flight is so fucking bizarre. And then he gives this speech 25 years later at the anniversary of the moon landing to all the brightest high school kids. And he says,
there are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
Yeah, like, what does that mean? The press conference clearly says we couldn't see any stars. We couldn't see any stars.
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see.
I don't remember seeing any.
Then in his own book, which I think he wrote in 1994, he talks about how magnificent the stars were. Well, first of all, fuckface. You weren't even supposed to be on the moon.
Why is the Artemis 2 lunar suit so different from a regular spacesuit? No one realized this might be the key to their safe return to Earth. Many people's first reaction might be, why isn't it the classic pure white, but this blinding fluorescent orange? First of all, this is actually a life support system. This suit, known as the Orion Survival System, is essentially more like a mini spacecraft. It can provide astronauts with oxygen, remove carbon dioxide, and maintain a stable body temperature. Even in extreme situations like rapid depressurization, astronauts can survive inside it for up to 6 days. Secondly, it is designed for the worst case scenario. If an unexpected splashdown occurs during the return to Earth, this suit has already accounted for it. It comes equipped with survival gear, including a personal locator beacon, rescue knife, whistle, and glow sticks.
This is Jeremy's dinner, and in space you really just eat all of your food out of bags of some kind, plastic bags or little metallic bags, because we have to rehydrate a lot of our food. This is actually shrimp cocktail. And this has been rehydrated already, so we added water to it, and the shrimp soaked back up the water, and it's actually pretty tasty. This is an example of a food that has not been rehydrated yet. It got all dried out for flying up here in space, and those are green beans. So we do have to eat our vegetables even in space, but don't worry, they do give us mac and cheese.
They lost all the original tapes of the moon landing. What you watch when Neil Armstrong climbs off the LEM, One Small Step for Man, that's not a direct feed from anything. That was projected on a wall in NASA, and the networks aimed their camera at the wall to get like this projection. And the networks were like, "Hey, can we just get the direct feed? Because that would be a lot better." And they're like, "No, we're going to do it this way." And when asked why don't we go back, NASA said, "Well, we can't replicate that technology. It's too difficult."
Like, we lost the technology. It's like you lost the technology to get us to the moon. You just happened to lose it.
So the Van Allen radiation belts, that you have NASA astronauts saying, "Oh, we think we found a way now that we can get out of, high Earth orbit, that we can finally get past the Van Allen radiation belts." It's like, we already did that, man, didn't we? Didn't we do that 17 times or whatever? But they forgot. They lost it. Can't replicate it.
Unbelievable.
I don't buy it.
A hole in the bottom of it. You're telling me at 2 o'clock in the morning in Giant Rock Airport, you walked underneath this hovering ship and whammo, you went up inside.
You didn't go whammo. You went just about as slow as a local elevator run.
And when you got off the anti-gravity elevator, what did it look like?
I was inside of a ship about 18 feet in diameter and roughly 10 feet high to the domed ceiling, and there were 3 men on it.
Space. If you want to know about space, you have to know about the planets. If you want to know about the planets, you have to listen to me right now. Sun, Mercury, Uranus, water planets, Pluto, and this one, they didn't have a name for it yet. It's too far away. You can name it if you want. You can name it Taurus after my mom. If you want. It's up to you.
It's that time again. time to relax, kick up your feet, grab your favorite beverage, and tune in to the Rundown Live, your forecast into the future.
And because of this administration, we are tonight a world divided. We are a nation becalmed. We have lost the brisk pace of diversity and the genius of individual creativity. We are plodding along at a pace set by centralized planning, red tape, rules without responsibility, and regimentation without recourse.
Madam Speaker, I have a few questions for my colleagues. What if our foreign policy of the past century is deeply flawed and has not served our national security interests? What if we wake up one day and realize that the terrorist threat is a predictable consequence of our meddling in the affairs of others and has nothing to do with us being free and prosperous?
To be fair, we had helped to create the problem we're now fighting. How? Because when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, we had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else to go after the Soviets inside Afghanistan.
Promise of being one of the most effective treatments for AIDS and cancer in history. Now it's gone, and one of the most respected research facilities in the country is being blamed.
Participation in a process that validates an establishment that never meaningfully changes. What if that establishment doesn't want and doesn't have the consent of the governed? What if the two-party system was actually a mechanism used to limit so-called public opinion? What if there were more than two sides to every issue, but the two parties wanted to box you into a corner, one of their corners?
Censored by the mainstream media, the destroyer of fake news, and your host of the Rundown Live, Kriston T. Harris.
We're getting about 5,000 hits quite often, 5,000 hits on a lot of these videos. And you guys are really out there supporting this broadcast. And I want to let you guys know that you guys can find us here daily. So make sure you guys stop by. The rundownlive.com as well has some great information. I want to also plug our good friends over at Fringit, fringit.co. Fringit.co is a social media for people like you and me. For $1 a month, it prevents all the spam, all the weird people, that just want to kind of troll you, I guess. And it's kind of a great platform. They also broadcast the Rundown Live on fringit.com. So that being said, you can also find us Spotify, iHeartRadio, and a whole bunch of other places. And if you just don't know, the rundownlive.com, the rundownlive.com. So today's broadcast is going to be a very special broadcast because we're going to be broadcasting the moon flyby today. But joining me today is going to be a very interesting individual, somebody I've gotten to know in my personal life, and he's become a friend of mine. Whether I like him or not, he he gets to hang out with me, and I have to say he's actually quite an amazing person, and I'm actually blessed to have somebody like him in my life. And that is our guest, Marc D'Antonio. So a few things I just want to mention. Marc D'Antonio is a very interesting individual. He is one of the few people that is out there that has the science background. He's a astronomist, right? He's a chief video analyst for MUFON. He's an exoplanet specialist. And this guy loves the planets. He loves the stars. This is all he does. Like, if it was up to Marc D'Antonio, he'd sit in his little bunker with his little observatory just beaming into the world today. So we're going to talk a lot with Marc. We're going to talk about, his past. We're going to talk about the space exploration of the moon and what's going on with Artemis 2. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to be broadcasting that. And we're going to get into a little more interesting things like potential underwater UFOs. But before we do that, I wanted to share this video. So Marc has a big video that's launching today. He's going to be on a huge program on the interweb of things. One of those channels that gets millions of views. It's up there. It beats out some of the networks. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to play this video for you guys so you guys get to see what Marc's going to be doing today and what you're getting for in our show today when we talk a little bit with him.
Hearing from literally one of the people that works for the President of the United States say to me that this is something I can't talk about blows your mind. Actually say, wow, I can't believe I heard this.
Today we're joined by Marc D'Antonio. Marc is an astronomer who specializes in exoplanets. He's MUFON's chief photo and video analyst and the CEO of FX Models, a visual effects company that works with everyone from Hollywood studios to defense contractors. Marc runs 2 remote observatories where he live streams the night sky for anyone who wants to watch. He's a scientific voice you see analyzing footage on History Channel's The Proof is Out There and countless other TV shows. He's also co-developed an advanced UFO detection camera system with Doug Trumbull. Marc's one of those rare people who has real scientific credentials and takes his subject dead seriously.
We're all getting off the bus. Next thing you know, I'm getting back on the bus. Wait, what's going on? I still have my bag lunch. I'm holding it the same way. I don't remember the day. I distinctly remember a weird feeling coming over me out there, and then next thing you know, I'm on the ground in convulsions and seizures.
When you were 9, did you think this could be an alien abduction? Or did you not have that frame of reference?
It wasn't there quite yet, but here's what happened after that. I wanted to be able to bring astronomy to the masses like we were talking about. I bought a dome for my front lawn. It was the only dome in the entire town of Terryville, Connecticut. And so people would come in, and they still do, from all over the world, and just watch as I produce the universe live in real time. Long before we thought and knew that there might be planets around M-stars, people were seeing gray-type aliens. Now, is it possible that gray aliens come from these red stars? The stars that are the most numerous of any type of star in the universe. Is it possible? I can't say no. We have about 150 billion stars at the low end in our galaxy. At the high end, 400 billion. 25 million Earth-like planets in our galaxy. Okay, that's at the low end. If you go to the high end, it looks like maybe we're talking 40 billion potential habitable worlds in our galaxy. You wake up one night and you think, why am I awake? And then you look over at the clock, it's exactly 3:15 a.m. Right? And then you hear this. And it's coming from like the peak of the window roof. And next thing you know, I see this blanket of white light. And all of a sudden I couldn't see. I went to turn my head, I couldn't move my head.
Oh no.
So then I went to move just my eyes, and my eyes wouldn't move. My eyes wouldn't move. From the side, I saw something eclipse that street light, and then it's doing this, coming toward me. And it's here, and it wouldn't let me, but I saw gray, long fingers.
Oh, come on.
Like a hand. And then I felt something going up into this sinus, and it was like, whoa! And then it was morning, and boom, I was lying with my hands on my sides, face down in my pillow, and unable to breathe.
Marc D'Antonio, welcome to the broadcast. Congratulations. It seems like there's going to be an amazing episode tonight on the Y-Files. And I know that you got to be antsy because there's nothing more that you love to do than looking at space. And with things that are going on with the space flight across the moon, I think it's going to be a fascinating day in the show. We got a lot of questions and things of that nature. But Very excited to have you on the broadcast, brother. How have you been, man? And what was this process like?
Well, which process you talking about, first of all?
Well, first of all, going over into a big studio, because you do it all the time. You're either like on some, I see you on Discovery Channel, I've seen you on History Channel, I've seen you on all these programs all the time, but here you're going to the Y-Files, and
Yeah, that was
did they
cool.
just call you up and they're like, Mark, let's get on the broadcast, or how did that work out?
Yeah, actually, they Gino, who's AJ's brother. I knew Gino a long time ago, Gino Gentile, and so he put me on a list because I guess they thought I was interesting, and their talent broker called me and said, "Would you like to be on the Y-Files? Come to Vegas and blah blah blah." I was like, "Oh, it's actually a show called The Basement, right? It's a Y-Files production," and I said, "Sure, I guess. Why not? It's Gino's brother's show. They work together. I mean, I like Gino. He's a great guy." So I got to meet AJ, actually, and it was really cool. And so I feel like I was on Y-Files years ago because I remember the Hecklefish saying stuff, and so one of the things they had me do when I went in was to answer viewer questions. And the Hecklefish was asking the questions. It was hilarious. And so that was actually a lot of fun.
That's how I know the show, Mark. I know it's the Fish Tank Show.
Yeah, the Fish Tank Show.
Years ago, and he's like, and I was like, I really like the info, but early on they used the fish a lot, and I was like, I don't know if the fish is running the show or this guy is running the show. But I started watching them again. I've been seeing them in my reels and on TikTok, and the guy is your buddy. He's blown up, man. He's done a great job covering things too, and he covers things very thoroughly.
He does. AJ's very, very thorough, and I don't mind telling you, I actually didn't want to know what he was going to talk about because I don't need to know. I prefer not to know because, you don't want to get into the old mode of thinking, do I have to study for this test? I mean, the whole point is if it's not here yet, it ain't ever going to be really. So if it's not up there, you don't really deserve to be on the show. If you just put facts in your head for 5 minutes, that's not good. So it was interesting listening to him because AJ had a stack of papers with all kinds of notes that he wanted to talk about. Extremely thorough, and before me, I think James Fox was on, and then, I think he was on a week earlier, and then 4 days before me, Avi Loeb was on. So it was actually kind of a interesting, appearance. Now, the thing was, these guys are great. Okay.
Group of people to be associated with those names. Hugh Newman was just on there too.
Really? Wow, that's cool. That's neat. And Kriston Harris. We're going to get you on there.
I was just on Coast to Coast, and guess who I called because I needed advice, or I hit up. I was like, Mark, what do I expect? Coast to Coast AM,
Yeah.
And, Mark and I have hung out quite a bit. In fact, Mark is kind of, in some shapes and forms, my, I would say, my foundation of reality in the UFO culture. And I guess I wrote down some questions for you, Mark, that I put some thought into. And I guess for our listeners, the first one is that you hold a formal degree in astronomy and you built a multifaceted career from special effects, and you do modeling and special effects to public outreach with SkyTour LiveStream, which, by the way, you can subscribe and see the sky whenever you want on Mark's channel. We're going to plug that. And your role at MUFON, what first sparked your passion for astronomy, and how did that path lead you into both the hard science side and more of the, conspiratorial UFO, UAP investigation side?
Well, the conspiracy followed me into it. In other words, I didn't bring conspiracy to it. It made itself aware to me every time I, looked at the potential for extraterrestrial life elsewhere. I always thought that there was extraterrestrial life elsewhere. I never not that was never not in my head. I always thought it was out there. I always still do. And the reason was one of science. As a 9-year-old kid, I knew this, and that's when I decided to become an astronomer at age 9. And, call my life boring, but I chose to just stick with that. Now, I did go undersea for a little while. I was thinking about the undersea careers and oceanography and so forth. And then I decided to go into outer space because outer space intrigued me more. Why? Because I probably knew I'd never have to fly there to see it, which is scary. Okay, and if I was in an oceanography world, I'd have to be in a submersible, possibly going down to the deep ocean. Look what happened to Titan. So I don't, I don't relish taking those kinds of risks. But, I thought it was pretty cool. Anyway, so going into outer space these days, I would probably do it at the drop of a hat. I'm not afraid to do that. Absolutely willing. But as long as I can come back. I'm not into the whole one-way trip to Mars thing. You go. You go. I don't want to go. I'm not going to go. I'll just stay here and watch. Hi, there you are in my binoculars. Okay, I wouldn't do it. But so as I started to get more into astronomy, I realized that it's going to be a rigorous application of that science that gets us off this world someday. No, we don't need it now. We go because we want to explore. We don't go because we must. There's no desperate need to go, except when we were racing the Russians to the moon. Okay, and when we raced the Russians to the moon, okay, and here's a misconception about the Artemis mission. Okay, Artemis 2, the people say, well, if we went to the moon in the 60s and 70s, okay, you tell me why it's taking us so long to get there now, and we only got there in a 3 days in 50 years ago, whatever. And the answer is actually quite simple. Right, first of all, the testing of Artemis, or so the Orion spacecraft in this mission, is actually what's going on here. They're testing the marathon capability of Orion, because Orion's got 4 people in it. It's going to be in there for 10 days. Now, that is a test bed of data. I mean, they're only they're basically going about as fast as an F-35 fighter can go at top speed right now. Now, why is that? Well, because they're actually, again, they could go a lot faster if they wanted to, but they're going slower. And the reason they're going slower is because they want to test the longevity, the spacecraft. They want to test out. You have no idea what it's like to be an astronaut in that capsule right now. They don't just sit there and look out the window. What's going on? Twiddling their thumbs. They've got every second accounted for, except during their sleep cycle. And that sleep cycle is just a cycle. They get a certain number of hours and no more and no less. And so they have to be on top of things to actually do work for, the home planet while they're out there. And so they're not lounging. They actually, if you can believe this, it's not like they even have time to look out of a window. I know that seems silly because we have windows in our house. We say, what's that out there? They don't have that kind of time. That's something that's a misconception people have, is that the astronauts have all this free time. And it's because we see them in the cupola posing, okay, in the ISS, taking pictures of the Earth through the ISS, right? We see that, So the bottom line is, to me, every moment is taken there. And we got to remember that back when we were going to the moon during the Apollo days, we were racing another country to get there. Okay, we were trying to beat Russia. Okay, and that's a heavy motivation at that time. Now, not so much. We don't need to race anybody these days. But we're trying to test now the longevity of the craft, because the Orion spacecraft may be the one that takes humans to Mars, too. So we have to figure out a way to test the longevity of a craft like this. And so if this is a successful mission, then it'll be interesting to see how this turns out, because it'll be like, this is going to be great data. Every day they're acquiring good data to help NASA and humanity. And it's not just NASA, by the way. Everybody's involved. It's not just NASA isolated. No, not at all. Okay, there's a lot of companies involved in this. All right. So as far as Elon Musk and Starship going to Mars versus Orion.
Well, I think he's switched it. Now he's going to the moon, Mark.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you brought those points up, because there's a lot of people out there that feel that this is a glorified publicity stunt, because technically we could send a satellite out there amongst other things. But I'm like you. I think it's really cool, and it's exciting that humanity is in space. and that they're going around the moon. And like you mentioned, it's taking longer, but there's some science behind it because they're trying a new style, right? We're not landing on the moon. They're trying to use the gravity of the moon to slingshot the ship back at the Earth. Is that correct? Am I explaining that right?
Yeah, just about. I mean, and remember, in the early Apollo missions, they did the same thing. They didn't land. In fact, they went all the way to taking a lander out of the lunar module stage on Apollo, circled the moon with it, and then, of course, discarded it. You know, they didn't land, but they went all the way through each phase of that process. Now, are we going to do that again? Probably not, but we're going to probably, now we have a lot more knowledge and capability. So we have also something different than the Apollo had. We have 21 days of provisions on this Orion spacecraft, okay, twice as long as the projected mission. So the point being that with 21 days of provision in the Orion spacecraft, it's a huge difference from the number of provisions the Apollo spacecraft had, which was way less. You know, so and these are all Air Force pilots, vying for the position of going to the moon. This was all a full-on military mission, and so it's becoming, and if you notice, it's sort of a shirt sleeve environment like the later Apollos became, and it's also a shirt sleeve environment like the ISS is. So we're trying to, in a way, normalize space to us. If you can overcome the feeling of falling the entire time you're in space, you know that feeling you go when you go over the top of a hill and your stomach goes, ugh, okay?
Is that kind of how it feels like in space, like you're on a roller coaster the whole time?
24/7.
24/7.
Sleep that way. Go to the bathroom that way. Brush your teeth that way. There are some people that don't get used to it and can't handle it. There's an airplane lovingly called the Vomit Comet, okay, which is an early I forget the name of which one. It's 737 maybe, but it's been gutted and has pads all around the walls, and they fly these arching loops through the sky, and for several seconds, a number of seconds, maybe 20, 25 seconds, I don't know the exact number, they are weightless, because as they go over the top, it's that roller coaster feeling, and then they're weightless. They float around. They can float around and do whatever they want while they're in there for that moment. And then as the plane comes down to the bottom of the loop, you slowly come back down to the ground. You just drop, okay? And then they do that. Now, my dream is to fly on the Vomit Comet. Okay, the only problem is, and they call it that for a reason, and I'll probably help it keep its name. But boy, what a thing to do. If you know the aircraft is going to do that, you don't have as much trepidation about it doing it because you know that's what's coming. Okay, and like in a regular flight, when people fly and they go, oh, they drop, they go, oh. Okay, they get scared because, oh no, what's happening? But the fact is, on these planes, you do that 15 times, okay? And you go, 15 times in a row, over time. So you have some time in between each arch. But that's astronaut training. Remember the movie Apollo 13? They did that. They flew a mini set on this plane, and they did actual weightless segments for this whole thing. So that was pretty cool. That they actually used real weightlessness to do this movie, So, you got to think, and of course, people in the conspiracy world are going to say, that's how they're doing it. It's like, okay. So you figure that you're going to fly something the size of an ISS Unity habitat in the sky and do these weightless runs. Doesn't work.
Well, what's worse yet is they're having toilet issues.
I know.
Like that's the worst combination. You're on this spaceship. You're like, we're getting blown through space, and you're like, oh, my stomach. But the toilet's busted. Doesn't seem like the best scenario sometimes. But if that's the worst of their issues, I'm sure these astronauts are ecstatic about being in space and off the planet, amongst other things. I got to ask you, because you have an observatory. Our listeners might not know this, but you have a couple of observatories. Have you tried to find them in space? Have you tried to look and zoom in and see if you can capture a picture of the spaceship, like flying to the moon? I was just wondering if that's possible.
Well, it is technically possible. I don't know if our systems can capture it. It's a really tiny object, and it's almost to the moon. On the way to the moon, we could have. it's been cloudy, so I haven't been able to try. Okay, out in the desert where our telescope.
It would just be a neat photo to have too on top of it.
Yeah, it won't. You won't see anything but a dot moving through the sky. In our image, it would be like a line, a dragged out line from a time exposure that we take to capture it. But I was interested in trying to do that. But the thing is, it is such a small object so far away that's like saying, well, how come I can't take a photograph of the flags on the surface of the moon from the Apollo missions? Obviously, not even the Hubble can do that. There's a lot of limitations, a lot of reasons why that can't happen either. So, but it's neat to see it. It's neat to try to imagine, being able to take a picture like that. On their way back, maybe I'll catch one. But it's been cloudy. We have 2 telescopes, one in the Sonoran Desert in our Observatory 1, and in our Observatory 2, we have one out in Benson, Arizona. And that's on a plateau with like 9 other professional astronomers. And they're imaging their own things. They're doing their own jobs. But I'm the only one that's actually doing public outreach with our observatories. So, there's a lot of cool people that just come in and watch us do this on a nightly basis at SkyTour LiveStream.
So on SkyTour, do you guys ever capture things like satellites in your photos?
Constantly.
Because there's like 15, they say upwards of 15,000 active satellites. I don't think they even know. And how many inactive ones do they have in space?
Well, what do you consider an inactive satellite? A nut in a bolt that got away?
That's true. Maybe satellites that don't work anymore?
Yeah, there's true satellite numbers. It's around 3,000 inactive. Okay, 3,000 inactive. Now, there's active satellites. There's probably about, and I would say the upper limit, active satellites is about 15,000. Musk is going to have a lot to do with that as well, because that population is largely the Starlink satellites. But there are at least 3,000 dead, intact, big, larger satellites. Now, if you include the pieces of stuff that got away, if you include the stuff that happened with collisions between satellites that actually had unfortunately occurred and littered the orbits with debris, much of that stuff re-entered. Some of it didn't, but the stuff that didn't re-enter, that stayed in orbit, that's the rogue stuff, and that stuff will probably number in the hundreds of thousands, maybe the low millions of pieces, okay, that are just floating around up there. There's a real danger.
Trash, right?
Huh?
Is that basically space trash? It's like a graveyard?
Yeah, up there. Now, that's effectively, for dead satellites, it'll never come back. It's because what do they run on? Well, they run on either solar power, or they run on batteries, or they run on, they won't run on nuclear power, because we don't put nuclear-powered satellites in Earth orbit, okay? But we do make sure that the satellites will have a longevity of a certain amount, and then they die. And when they die, they're inert, and they don't do anything, just continue in their orbit. They don't know any different, unless it's a low orbit. When you have a low Earth orbit, LEO, it's called LEO. If you're in a LEO orbit, then your satellite has to occasionally be boosted back up to its higher orbit. The ISS is one of those. At 252 miles, when the solar activity is high, the atmosphere is made turbulent, and some of the molecules and atoms, can reach up higher into the atmosphere, and they form a higher envelope of air around the Earth for a brief time. But the ISS can fly around some of those atoms, and believe it or not, even though it's still vacuum outside that spacecraft, that station, it's enough to slow down the station just enough that they have to actually boost it a little higher every so often. And that's because it's in a lower Earth orbit at 252 or so miles. So it's, I guess Buzz Lightyear said it best. When you're in a full orbit, it's like falling with style, right? Because you're moving horizontally as much as you're being pulled down. So that puts you in a constant circular orbit. And you know what? The flat earthers hate me, and I'm happy about that, because those are people that just haven't taken science classes, possibly, or innocent people that have watched the YouTube video.
I think people have been just lied to so much, Mark, that they don't know what to believe. Let's be honest. At the end of the day,
that's true.
It's
true.
like you've been lied to your entire life. You don't know what the hell to believe. I was really into the hollow earth theory for a while, just because there's large bodies of water inside of our planet. And, Admiral Byrd's claims, allegedly,
Yeah. Well, but see, in that fact, that what you just stated there, large bodies of water inside our planet, that's the popular notion. What's the actual notion? What's the physical manifestation of that? It's actually rock strata that's got a lot of water mixed into it. It's not oceans under the crust. It's actually hydrated rock. All right? So that's different. You're not going to be able to step in a puddle, 10 miles under the earth. All right? And if you did, that would be a very hot puddle, because the internal heat of the earth is heating that stuff up and boiling it off to steam if it gets it on the way out. But it's actually hydrated rock that's porous, and so there's bits of water inside there, but it's not like an ocean. Now, so in other words, it's hard to know what to believe. That's true, but here's the thing. Science doesn't care what people believe, right? I mean, and facts don't care what people believe, but it's true that people believe certain things. Now, from my perspective, I don't look at someone who says things that are patently false, for instance, and say, "Oh, that's stupid. You're just a jerk." I don't do any of that. It's like I want to tell them that well, okay, that's what you may have been told, but here's the actual truth of what we know. Okay, and that's kind of important. I think that's very important. Now, you're a smart guy, and I would never accuse you of saying anything dumb.
I'm sure I've said plenty of dumb things in my life, Mark. In fact, I've been on air and said dumb things where I have to let my listeners know I was wrong, right? Because that's the humiliation, as part of redemption there.
You know what, though? It's a learning process for all of us, right? I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. I certainly know that. And if I say what I say based on my understanding of the problem. And if my understanding of the problem is wrong, I don't have an ego. I don't need to have my ego stroked. I'll just say, "Yep, I was wrong about that. Yep, you're absolutely right." Even if it's someone who's attacking me for it and being really vitriolic, okay, I'll say, "Well, you were right actually, so I guess I'm wrong." Because I don't have that pride or ego to worry about. And that's actually very helpful. If you can lose your ego on all this, then you can just stick to the science and give your most honest best foot and put it forward.
Well, that's what it comes down to. It's very like we've had discussions, right, Mark, about things I disagree with you on. And at the end of the day, it's just listening to other people and accepting new data, because that's really what science is. At one time, maybe they believed the earth was flat. Maybe at one time they believed the earth was hollow. I know the Nazis believed that in the Thule and the Vril Society. But things change as you get more data, as you get more information, and people need to accept that once they get the new information. But it's the people who are diehard. And again, it's because we've been lied to time and time again about so much stuff the government gets involved with, and the origins of NASA aren't really the most pleasant origins, historically. But the organization itself has really done. I mean, if we're going to the moon and we're going to build a moon colony, Mark, my first thought is, when do I get to go to the moon bar and the space bar and pick up some moon babes? At the end of the day, it's like, when can we go? Yeah, it sounds fun. And space tourism is a real thing. And if we're going to have people on the moon, and we're going to have like the restaurant at the end of the universe, and so I can get my gargle blaster or whatever they want to call it, it's going to be interesting. But at the same time, part of me is wondering if the elites just want to break away society and they're going to all move to the moon while this planet gets destroyed in World War III with Iran here.
Yeah, I don't think the elite are planning an exodus to the moon, to be fair.
Just Elon Musk, maybe.
Yeah, you can't go for a walk on the moon without slicing into your boots, because the lunar soil is kind of like tiny pieces of glass. And if you inhale that stuff, your lungs are going to get shredded, and you will pass.
I've never heard that before, Mark. So why are they like tiny pieces of glass?
because of the way the dust was formed when there was many meteorite strikes and asteroid strikes that hit the moon. That stuff goes molten and it comes up into the air or the area over the moon, right? We call it the exosphere, not the atmosphere. Okay, so the exosphere around the moon is littered with this material that's cooling very little as it's falling, and then it hits the ground on the moon from the moon's lesser gravity, and it doesn't erode. It doesn't have any kind of erosion that occurs. So if it's sharp and craggy, it stays that way for billions of years, and that extends to the tiny little fragments that you see on the lunar surface. So I forget which astronaut it was, but he couldn't go on his final moonwalk because his boots were cut through all the way to the insulation because of the fact that the moon dust was so sharp and abrasive. So that was really dangerous.
Is that when Airwalks went out of business? I'm just kidding. Those used to be great shoes, by the way.
Funny, yeah. Yeah, but no. So honestly, the moon's surface is not a very habitable place. The ultraviolet light, comes streaming down right to the lunar surface, sterilizing it. The only safe habitat on the moon is going to be under the moon. So it'll actually bring new conspiracy forward, if you will, that there's people living inside the moon. Well, eventually that'll be true, because we're going to have moon bases, but they'll be under the lunar surface where the ultraviolet radiation can't get to, and it'll be safe down here, and it'll be dangerous up here where the moon's surface is. So one of those places that they are theoretically looking at in here is old lava tubes. Now, we know of lava tubes in Hawaii, on the Big Island. You have these lava tubes. People can walk in them and say, hey, look, lava tubes. And they're actually tubes that look kind of like tubes. But the thing is, when hot lava was streaming through them, okay, they actually form a coating of hardening lava around the peripheral edges. And then when it drains out fully, it leaves that hard, crusty interior tube.
That's how our military builds a lot of their deep underground military bases here on Earth, allegedly, is using these old things, these old tubes.
Allegedly, yes. Yeah.
The deep underground military bases, per se. My favorite, there's a couple do you have a favorite moon conspiracy? So I got two. One I knew was false, but that's that the Death Star was actually made based on the moon because they believed it was a UFO and that it was planted there to spy on our planet. Because that was really funny to me, and I was like, okay, so the people who are really into Star Wars kind of collaborated the moon in this new conspiracy. The other one was the Nazi moon base, which is a really prominent one for a long time, that the Nazis landed on the moon in 1942 or something like that, and they got there first. And we know they had advanced technology. We took their scientists on, but those are two. But there's I don't think I believe in either of those. But what do we expect them to maybe bump into, if you do believe in the alien cultures, that there might be aliens on the moon too? Because we've been discussing on our show that the aliens could be, if they're going to be here, why would they visit from another dimension? They would just create a base underground or underwater here on this planet. There's no need for them to travel intergalactically or from another planet when they can just have a permanent base here,
But they got to get here first, and so whichever way they get here, they could set up. Is it out of the question? I'd be arrogant to suggest there's no aliens that could ever visit the moon or set up a base there. I just know that it's unlikely because there's no need to. Okay? All they have to do is hide under the water here on our planet, which is covered mostly by water. And as long as they have technology to do that, which I believe they can, and one of my most popular lectures around the country is on this particular mode of propulsion that allows them to stay anywhere they want, including deep in the ocean without any consequences of pressure, and that is something that I think is very likely. Now let's talk about aliens in the moon. I did a show on Netflix with a producer in Los Angeles, and the show was called Aliens on the Moon. And the premise of the show was they were going to show me all these images of lunar craters and then say, well, these aren't really lunar craters. And they wanted me to study the craters and figure out what they were. Well, they showed me about 10 or 15 different craters for the show. And only one crater, one photo, I should say, it wasn't even of a crater, it was of a hill, Only one of those actually had a look that I couldn't explain. The rest, they weren't waiting. They weren't expecting this. For the rest, I had created moon soil, lunar soil, in my special effects shop, and I took them in there and I said, I've recreated these different scenes using my lunar soil to show you how it could have happened. And when they say it was a trick of light and shadow, they're not kidding. But I know it's an often stated line, and people just say, well, they just said it's a trick of light and shadow. What baloney. However, that actually is true in most of those cases, and I showed it live. I created the very same thing using my lunar soil and my moon model that they were showing. And I said, look, here's the lighting. This is why it looks this way. Now let's change the lighting, okay? See, this is just like a saddle ridge, okay? It's not a bridge over a yawning chasm of black. Okay, it's a saddle ridge of a lit valley top, okay, lit tops of the valleys through this middle of a crater that's bigger, but it has a secondary crater that was next to it. And the splash, or the crater walls, bunched up in the middle, and this was a peak right here. So when this crater, which is down here deep, okay, when the light is low, you see darkness, and then you see this lit center. And that lit center going through this, what looks like a large crater, it was actually two craters combined, looked like a bridge. I recreated that exactly, and I showed them, and their response was, that won't get in the episode. I said, but that's the truth. And they said, yeah, but we don't want that to show in the episode. So the point is, people that are trying to make documentaries and make a certain point with a certain agenda that there are aliens on the moon, they don't want to know the truth. So I witnessed that firsthand. So the bottom line is that, when we talk about aliens in the moon or on the moon, okay, I don't say that can't be true. Actually, I say that the moon is actually pretty large, and the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has been going around the moon for years, mapping the moon down to the size of a small house, of an RV, okay? And using the LRO Quick Map, you can go look for that online and get lost for hours and hours and hours. Miss dinner, as I have a few times, looking at details on the moon, and see that, you can see all the Apollo landing sites. You can see the tracks left by the rover and some of the astronauts. You can see the experiments on the moon and the base of the lunar modules left behind. I've even found where the lunar module that was discarded and went back to the moon and made a very shallow set of orbits until it collided with hills and blew apart. I even found those things on the moon where they blew up, and you can actually see the scar and the trail of debris. So there's a lot of proof that we've been there, for instance. And as far as seeing aliens there's no proof that we've seen that. Yes, there's rumors. Well, listen to some of the astronauts. Okay, they said this, they said that. And yes, I'm sure they have, and I'm sure it's true that they have. Did they see something that they couldn't explain? Maybe. I'm all for it, actually.
There's there's somebody hanging out there moon tanning, because there wouldn't be sun tanning. They're all hanging out there.
Yeah.
But we're getting close, Mark. I know they gave us a couple different times of arrival, and it keeps getting pushed back a little bit by the minutes. But to think about what these people are experiencing right now, being put together, congested in a small little, submarine-like tank. And I kind of say submarine because you've been on submarines, and it can't be much different than what you've experienced on submarines, except a little bit more congested. But, here we got it on the screen for the listeners out at home. It's incredible to think. And some of the things people are questioning is why, first of all, how do they make it past the Van Allen belt? There's always been this conspiracy. The radiation from the Van Allen belt is going to kill anybody or nuke anybody that flies, to the moon. But how is it that we've been able to do that? What kind of technology are they using to prevent that?
I missed part of the latter half of your question.
Well, basically, it's about the Van Allen belt and radiation.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, how is it that we're making it to the moon and these individuals are not at risk of radiation poisoning or sickness? Because that was always the argued fact, is we could never survive flying through the Van Allen belt. And what is the Van Allen belt, by the way? Do we have any idea?
Sure. Of course. Okay, first of all, Earth has a large magnetic field, okay? It's called a magnetosphere, and it kind of looks like a teardrop, okay, that kind of drapes behind the Earth a little bit. Okay, so it goes around. If this is the Earth, it goes around the Earth and trails behind it a tiny bit. Well, that magnetic field traps charged particles from the sun. And those charged particles, high-energy protons and electrons, this is the solar wind, becomes the Van Allen radiation that they're so concerned about. Now, the thing about that, if you look at the way the Van Allen belt is made, the way the magnetosphere of the Earth is made, it comes out of the North Pole and the South Pole of the Earth. So at the top, it comes out and immediately starts to go out, and it gets bigger as it goes around the Earth and narrower as it goes through the poles, okay? So for the Apollos, okay, we went out through the poles a little bit so that it would minimize the exposure that the astronauts had. Now, our Orion spacecraft right now is a little more well-equipped to shield the astronauts than the Apollos were. So we have a little more shielding, okay? So it's still risky. If there was a solar flare, like an X-class flare of a high order, it would be dangerous for the astronauts, no doubt. So it is a chance. And if it struck, if it approached and hit the moon, for instance, while they were on the far side, they'd be okay. But if they came around and it hit, well, then they'd be exposed to a fairly high amount of radiation, which could be painful, hurtful to them. So right now the only problem they have is ice. That's the only problem they have right now. So when we talk about, you said the toilet failed, I wanted to mention that the actual problem they're having is that the vent line that puts this waste water out into space is frozen. Now, I don't know why that was overlooked. I don't know why they didn't have an onboard heater. They've got the solar panels to heat it. Maybe they do. Maybe it's inefficient. Maybe it's not working. Either way, the vent line is making it impossible to send the waste out of the capsule. So in what they call the hygiene bay of Orion, I'll just say it, the smell's unbearable there right now. They've said so. And the astronauts have been told, just do number one, not number two. I know, sounds crazy, but that's what they've been told. So there's going to be some changes, obviously.
And then they were worried about them making love in space. That would be a bad smell. Remember, they were having those conversations? They're like, we are warning you not to procreate in space. Well, with that smell, I'm sure that's a big turnoff. I'm kind of curious on how that all works. Does our smell the same when we're out there? If gravity is different, how does that all work? You're floating through space so you can still smell things. And how does that impact, everything, like your taste, your feel, how you're I have so many questions about just being on the spaceship, but hopefully I'm young enough that one day I can take a vacation to the moon, Mark, and you too, because, like we talked about space tourism, but, the Van Allen belt is an interesting thing. And it's, it's been like a figure point and talking point of conspiracy theorists. And the way, I wanted to cover a lot of these because I think it's interesting to our listeners because a lot of them, they're echo chambers, right? Yeah. We don't have the time to do research ourselves. A lot of us don't have the education to understand it. We just try to think logically, and just because we're thinking logically, that doesn't mean that there isn't another answer, right?
Agreed. And people, unfortunately, people who want to search for answers will sometimes happen onto the wrong YouTube video. And it's spoken by a very authoritative person who sounds like they know what they're talking about. And many times they are dead wrong when it comes to science, but they still say these things anyway, and people still soak it up, And it's not the people's fault. They're just responding to what they've seen. So they ask questions, and like you said earlier, people are used to being lied to, and when people lie to you, okay, then you are gun shy about believing anything you're told. I get that. I totally get that. And so I don't think that it's something that we should really think about. I guess in a way that slights the people that are saying these things, unless they're what I call the grifters at the top. The people at the top who actually are getting something out of this, that are, you know, have a channel devoted to it, and they want more clicks, more subscribers. So YouTube monetization kicks in to get all kinds of, you know, benefits. People that say these things and are grifters, they're the ones that depend on the people who are just interested in learning, and bamboozle them, you know, fool them into believing that what they're saying is correct. There's a lot of that on YouTube. There's no.
Well, yeah, they literally have a Griftcast. Like, Griftcast, donate. You know, there's programs out there that are like that. Griftcast in real life, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
it's right. There's a lot of misinformation and propaganda out there, especially when it comes to the UFO expedition. I know, as a certified MUFON investigator, I only got one case. And it was really easy for me to identify and put it through graphics that it was fake or fraudulent. I really didn't have, I checked some, you know, airport reports. But when you're digging through this, what do you think, like, obviously, if they're going back there, do you think that there's any odds that they're going to capture irregularities in space, like spaceships, things doing 90 degrees turns? You would think that the UFOs and aliens are like, what? These little slimy human beings that procreate very oddly are trying to make it to the moon, and they're like giggling, they're like laughing at us. You know, they're interdimensional or whatever. They're living here.
Hey, Torque, check it out. They're actually going to the moon.
Well, finally.
That's crazy. I would never do that. You know, we did that centuries ago.
Right.
Yeah. I get that. You know, I'm totally on board with that. Clearly, you know, alien life watching us from afar or from a near, so to speak, from our oceans. They know that we're talented. And here's the thing about that: they're not infallible. They can't do 90-degree turns in the sky with impunity. They can't. They would be destroyed too. So what people have to understand is that's true for them too, right? And that's physics of the universe. They can't destroy physics. They can't obviate physics and negate it. What they can do is utilize it to make sure that they can do what they wish to do. And so if you see something, let's do that 90-degree turn. What's a 90-degree turn? Well, something going through the sky, and then boom, it just shoots off, you know, straight up, you know, from its horizontal path. It goes vertical. Whoa, how'd that happen? You know, instantly. Any creature, human or otherwise, in that craft would be squashed against the wall of the cabin when they did that. So the answer is that they don't actually do that, because they're not actually moving through our sky. They're literally appearing at a new X, Y, and Z coordinate at every moment. Okay? And
we talked about this with KK Gravitons one time. Our listeners may not be familiar with this, but Mark wrote a book. It's available on Amazon.
I didn't write the book on KK Gravitons.
No.
I wrote, but my friend Robert Schroeder wrote the book, which I always make sure people understand, Solving the UFO Enigma. And he was right. And, you know, I believe he's right about it. And so my book is called The Populated Universe. And that's the one I wrote about life in universe is the rule, not the exception, potentially. Okay? But the book, Solving the UFO Enigma, uses string theory to frame a new physics and a new understanding of how craft like this could fly, so to speak. Just imagine if you're sitting in your car at a stoplight and you want to go 2 blocks away to the next stoplight. The light turns green, you hit the gas, you start rolling, and you end up going to that. You go through every point between that stoplight and the next one, and then you stop at that stoplight. You've gone this far, stoplight to stoplight. Okay, but what if, yeah, that's it. What if you could actually go a different way? Okay, what if you could actually disappear from that light and appear at this other light? That sounds like it's outside of our understanding. It sounds like science fiction. Okay, but guess what? Science fiction has often become science fact, hasn't it? We know that. Okay, and in this particular case, I think we're on our way to understanding that. And that disappearance is accomplished by looking at physics a different way than we're used to. We have a standard model of physics. This is something different. This is string theory. Now, in string theory, we're afforded other dimensions besides X, Y, and Z moving through time. That's 4 dimensions we have. Time is one. Okay, that little guy. Okay, so X, Y, and Z, that's my position right here in this chair. Okay, a slightly later time, I'm here. So I've gone from here, okay, to here in this slightly later time. Okay, so the time changed and my XYZ coordinates changed. But if I went from here directly to here without any motion through these intervening points, that's what I'm talking about. And that means that if you could generate enough energy and enough of these what are called KK gravitons, Kaluza-Klein particles, to surround your spacecraft, then you'd get pulled back, you'd get pulled into where the other end of gravity exists. Okay, when you shine light at a wall, it goes from your flashlight to the wall and it stops. Okay, when you use a magnetic field, it emanates from a place and it terminates at another place, one pole to the other. Okay, but when you look at gravity, where does gravity start and stop? We don't know. That's the one thing. We have fundamental forces, 4 of them. Okay, we have the force that holds an atom together, the strong force. We have the force that is responsible for everything in the universe, called the weak force. It's actually responsible for decay that allows for new atoms to be made. Okay, then we have light. Okay, every one of these fundamental forces can be described as both a wave and a particle. We can describe an electron as a particle. We can describe it as a particle, or we can have an equation, a waveform, a wave equation that describes the electron. Light is a photon. Boom, a burst of light, a point of light, a little packet of light, and it could be a wave. That duality is all throughout our fundamental quantum world. So where's gravity in that? Gravity is a fundamental force. Well, we never knew there were gravity waves. We don't know if there's gravitons, gravity, packets, basically. However, we now know there's gravity waves. We've seen them when merging black holes ripple through space-time and make these ripples like ripples on a pond, except in 3D, okay, like a big sphere moving out from the collision. And we see these ripples. And based on the timing and the location, we can figure out where they're coming from and then say, wow, look at that. I can't believe it. Two black holes collided and put a ripple in space. That ripple has got to go through something. Well, that something is what we call the space-time continuum, or the fabric of space. And that's a whole nother world. But the point being that those ripples mean that gravity has waves. We've seen them. So where's the gravitational particle, the graviton? That's the thing that's elusive. The reason it's so elusive, I believe, is because it doesn't exist in our 4 dimensions. Okay? And this is the part that people go, huh? And that's okay. But just accept the following. For every other fundamental force, okay, we can describe it as a wave, and we can describe it as a particle, or mediated by a particle, or described as a wave. And then when it comes to gravity, we have just found waves, and now we have to find the particles. But all those other forces and all those other particles exist in our 4 dimensions. So we can see them and work on them. We can take light and bend it with a lens. We can reflect it with a mirror. We're reflecting photons, we're reflecting light waves. Okay, and we can describe them mathematically both ways. Gravity we can't touch. It permeates everything. Your chair you're sitting in, gravity's permeating the entire Earth to hold your butt down in that chair. Okay? So where's that coming from? Well, that's the thing that we don't know. All right? But theoretically, it may originate in another dimension and come into our dimension. That's a beautiful shot. The waning gibbous moon. Okay? It may originate in the other dimension and end here. Okay? But the thing that's important is that the next leap in science is going to come when we actually start to describe the universe and describe the science differently than we have. And when we look at string theory, we're going to actually be able to use these additional dimensions, and it's primarily a 5th dimension that we're talking about here. Okay, not the singing group. Okay, but we have 4 dimensions plus a 5th. And there's a variation of string theory that utilizes this, and that's called Randall Syndrome 1, RS1. Don't worry about that. Just understand that it means that if you are in the four-dimensional space, you can literally take yourself and using generation of these Kaluza-Klein gravitons, pull yourself out into a fifth dimension, okay, and then put yourself back in at another point. So you're not violating anything. You're going from this four-dimensional point to a fifth-dimensional spot.
Taking a shortcut, you're saying. You're going to pop out of this dimension, you travel a little bit easy, itty-bitty ways in another dimension, and then you're going to pop back in, and that's why they look like they do. They disappear and they reappear, or they take these weird shapes and turns.
You've heard my talk.
I think I have, yeah. You know, it's interesting. So I got a question to ask you.
Yeah.
Not necessarily on this whole KK graviton, but I think it's very interesting for our listeners to understand the science behind it. But what's your opinion on the disappearance of General McCaslin?
Oh, that's interesting. I was looking into that, and of course that woman too. I don't know if there's any. I'm thinking, my feeling is that he might have been depressed and he took his gun with him when he left. Now, you could go down the conspiracy trail and say, was he trying to protect himself from someone that was after him? Well, possibly. Okay. But you got to understand that he was not fully active in the UFO arena at the point where he vanished. In fact, he was sort of out of that loop. So he didn't really have any reason. It's just that people put that together and said, UFOs, this guy, the general, now he's missing. Oh, no, they're connected. They may not be connected. It could also be that he was depressed and he went and offed himself somewhere.
Or he was threatened, like some people think. It's you or your family. But, you know, first of all, people that don't know, McCaslin was in charge of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And we know this because of the Tom DeLonge correspondence with John Podesta, where he mentions McCaslin, and that's where at least they wanted Tom DeLonge to believe that the Roswell crash remains went, right? And allegedly McCaslin admitted this to Tom DeLonge, and that's what it's alluded to in that email between Tom DeLonge and John Podesta from the Podesta leaks that were validated by Google for those that want to do the deep dive there. And so not only that, he also, I had Brad Olson on the show, and we know that some of the people we hang out with, they say a lot of like fantastic things that it's like, how do you even prove that? But one of the things that Brad Olson talked about was this Antarctic research group that went disappearing for a while, and then they came back. But the thing is, all their equipment was shipped back to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is interesting because McCaslin was in charge of it. And you're right, he's not the only one. There's a total, Mark, in the last year of 8 scientists linked to similar UFO or space or secretive scientific experiments, including special types of alloy and metal.
Yeah, I remember I was up at Doug Trumbull's studio because Doug and I were friends for at least 10 years, and we were working together on projects. We did a movie about Nikola Tesla. We did all kinds of cool things. The Apple iPad Pro commercial for the Super Bowl, stuff like that. And Doug was a UFO hunter like I am. And so he caught the eye of some MIT folks, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and they came in with some materials that they said were metamaterials. And I handled them. I have photographs handling these materials. Now, what's interesting is these metamaterials were cool because was it true that the metamaterials were actually alien? Well, there's really no proof, but what you had was you had the fact that these metamaterials were showing different isotopes that could not be reproduced on Earth. And that was interesting. When you study these, you saw these isotopes that were fundamentally different from what was available on Earth. And, you know, you take all of it with a grain of salt. You know, you got to be careful. But we looked at the metallurgical report from MIT Labs, the MIT lab that did it, And there they were. They were definitely detected. Now, was it a false detection? I don't know. Across all the samples, you can expect one or two errant, out of norm values, but truly different objects. That's pretty strange. So maybe that is proof. I don't know, but I know that these materials were supposedly true metamaterials. I don't know.
Was we have that as well. I can put that on the screen. That was let's see, who was that? We got the list right here. Missing people. Monica Riza was the one that was really interested in the aerospace engineer and the alloy and stuff, and she was directly. We got Melissa Cassius and Anthony Chavez and Nuno Loureiro, Carl Grillmere, Jason Thomas, and Frank Maiwad, and obviously William McCaslin. These are all people. Some of them are died due to weird occurrences, and some of them. Monica Riza is an incredible story because she was hiking with two friends and they turned around and she vanished.
She was gone. That's right. Yeah. Now I don't. So we draw these parallels and we have to say, is it related? And it might be. I'm not gonna say it's definitely not. I mean, you had that list up a little while ago too, when you were looking for it, I guess. But it definitely is a list to be reckoned with, right? Now, there are parallels, and sometimes, I'll say this, sometimes people that believe in conspiracies are right, So is there one here? Is there something going on that we don't recognize? Maybe it's true, but I will say this. What if we just had all these secrets and we just exposed them? So what? Who's going to get them? Who's gonna be able to get them from us? Nobody. So I don't understand why the secrecy. There's no reason to keep it secret in reality, because if we have it and no one else does, well, we have a lot of secrets no one else does. And we're like, okay, the new stealth fighter being worked on right now, okay, we have that secret, but they know we're doing it. They don't have the secret, so they can't utilize it. They can't do it. But we have it. We're doing it. So you tell me why keeping that a secret all this time made any sense. It just never did to me. So I understand, well, we want power. We want them to, be involved with us only. And here's what that means to me. It means following. Maybe, unlike technology, which we control, these secrets are things we don't control because there's creatures, living beings that own them, and we're trying to cajole them into letting us have them instead of somebody else. That's the only possible thing that it could be.
Yeah, it's interesting with these people disappearing, specifically around the UFO cases. And, I think there's links there amongst other things. Matt Gaetz came out and said that he's been informed on alien-human crossbreeding, and I made the joke of having a UFO orgy, like these people are going to alien swinger parties. It's just like what Matt Gaetz is saying this stuff, and it's just wild to me the things that they are claiming. And a part of me is hesitant because of the old urban legend about Werner von Braun. Have you heard this urban legend about Project Bluebeam? Do you think that there's any credibility to that? Is that a real thing?
How do we know? I mean, we don't know. And we just have someone's video saying it, and we have someone saying it. And the thing that I find interesting is somewhere in there's always a deathbed confession, right?
Right. That seems to be popular.
Yeah, it's always a deathbed confession. Is it really a deathbed confession? And if you're on your deathbed, are you in your right mind? I hate to say it that way, but, it's possible. You might just say things that people want to hear. I don't know. And so that's the problem. Deathbed confessions are sometimes, well, always should be taken with a grain of salt.
It's data, though, right?
It is data, whether good or bad. No doubt. Yeah, you're right. No?
So, question for you. We're coming to an end here of the broadcast soon. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about, did you see the guy who snuck into Area 51, Nathan? He's a contractor, and he talks about it being a time dilation location where they did time dilation. And turns out I did some investigation into him. His credits are legitimate, except for the work he actually does is asbestos removal, and he's doing asbestos removal in these, like, some of these areas are very confidential, very secretive locations. Have you seen this video where the law enforcement came in and tried to arrest him, and he talks about time dilation, and the cops didn't know what to do with him because he had all these IDs?
I have not.
Oh, I'll send you the. Yeah, no, it's crazy. Let's see here. We'll put it on the screen for you. I know we got a little bit of time, but I thought it was pretty. I thought maybe you could explain time dilation to our listeners a little bit, because the whole idea behind it is. Here we go. I got it on the screen. We're going to go ahead and pull this up. Basically, this guy, he's a contractor for the government. He goes to Area 51 because he believes that there's another time dilation location that he works at, and he went in to basically check out the one at Area 51. And when the cops pulled him over, he acted like he belonged there. He was like, "What do you mean? Here's my data, here's my information." And the cops didn't know what to do with them. They called him in, and they're like, "Well, his credentials look temporary, and they could be real, or they might not be real." And they didn't know what to do with them. Here you go, Area 51. Let's see, time dilation. So time dilation, isn't that when time moves differently between people? Like for example, two people could go through a location and have two completely different experiences.
But they would be traveling at different speeds, vastly different speeds. It's a difference in. It's the difference in. I keep hearing this extra audio. Sorry.
Do you hear it still?
No, it's gone now. So it's the difference in time between two clocks, and so okay.
There it is again. Hold on, I apologize.
Yeah. I was hearing it before, so I was. That's why I had to ask you to repeat a couple things. Sorry. The whole point about this, you have to go into relativity. Okay. Now. According to Einstein, the faster you move through space, the slower time moves. The slower you move through time. Okay, and as you approach the speed of light, that time gets slower and slower. Okay, however, if you're in the ship doing the speeding along, to you, it seems normal, because that's your reference frame at that point. But someone watching you, okay, say you were going by the Earth at very, very high speed, close to the speed of light, and people were watching you with their special telescope. They could track the rocket, and there's a window, and you're in there waving, "Hi, guys." They'd see you like this. And they wouldn't see a lot of movement because you're frozen from their point of view. But from you, you're waving. Now, each time you wave your hand, okay, Earth is long gone by the time you actually move your hand just a few inches. And now, a lot of time is passing on Earth, but only a few seconds passing for you. All right, so it's like the twin paradox. The one twin takes off on a high-speed rocket and travels very, very close to the speed of light. Okay, when they come back to the Earth, let's say they go to Alpha Centauri and back, the twin on the Earth is older than they are. But wait, it was a twin. We were born almost the same time. But that's the twin paradox. That is factual data. The astronauts in the International Space Station are only traveling 17,500 miles per hour. In this really thin, gossamer looking, it's really beautiful. But even so, when they come back down to Earth, if any of them are twins, their twin is going to be older than they are. Okay, because they, by the very virtue of the fact that they're traveling at a constant speed, not nearly light speed, but there's still a measurable difference. Okay, their twin is going to be a little bit older than they are because they were in space. Their time reference frame slowed down a little bit. Nothing you can notice, nothing you can see, because it's nowhere near the speed of light. It gets much more pronounced as you get toward the speed of light, right? But it's measurable. So that's time dilation, and it has to do with literally the speed that you're moving, and who's observing you doing it.
So here, I'm going to play this video for you, Mark. I can't believe you haven't seen this. This is very interesting. I found this guy on LinkedIn. I did a lot of research on him, and he posts and he claims they have these, like he owns, like I said, he does essentially asbestos removal from these old websites. And I just wanted to get your take on it. I thought it was interesting. I won't play the whole video here for our viewership, but you guys can find this on my Facebook as well. But here it is. This is Nathan. He's gets arrested for coming into Area 51 claiming time dilation, which I guess there was a guy named Dr. Andrews who did special like time dilation experiments on the West Coast. But here we go. We'll play this for you guys.
This is part of a time dilation facility, and we are experiencing this now. I know it sounds weird, strange, but it's true.
They don't share your same thoughts.
I didn't even think about that.
Well, you better think about it right now because you're this close to being handcuffs back on, bud. The IDs, they're saying that they're all fake.
What if I did get clearance?
That's probably not going to happen, though.
There's more to it.
A man makes it past the gate at one of the U.S. government's most highly protected properties, Area 51. While investigating the man's bizarre claims, the responding deputy will be invited behind closed doors into an area the public never gets to see.
Hey, can I run up there and make a phone call?
The following report is based on official police records, and the footage has never been seen before until now. In the middle of the night on January 21, 2026, the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office gets a report of a trespasser at the Nevada Test and Training Range, a vast swath of land that includes a highly restricted facility known to the public as Area 51.
Thank you.
But we're going to go ahead and there's a advertisement here, and we're going to skip this for a second, and then we'll come right back. But we'll keep going here. It's interesting.
Through the gate and onto some of the U.S. military's most heavily guarded property. Defended by a private security force known popularly as the Camo Dudes, Area 51's secrecy has led to conspiracy theories about what exactly is happening beyond these gates. And the man currently being detained by security believes he's figured it out.
What's going on?
I've drove up here. I know it sounds weird, strange, but it's true. This is part of a time dilation facility, and we are experiencing this now. And you may not remember, I hope you remember it now. It's tied to Revelations. It's tied.
Okay.
I mean, with heaven, you believe in it. I believe in heaven.
I do too, but here's the deal.
Yeah.
There's a gate that has a no trespassing sign outside that.
Yes, I passed
that gate. You passed it. So you've seen the sign, and obviously you've seen the gate.
Yes.
Okay. Did you come out here earlier too and try to open the gate?
I did.
You did? Okay.
Yes. No hostility intended.
No, by doing what you've done, that is hostility.
Oh.
This is the military, okay?
Okay.
Or this is no joke.
Right.
So you're out here because of some religious belief? Is that what I'm getting at?
Yeah. There's more to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something about time travel or?
Not travel. Dilate. It's experiencing this time.
Okay.
Multiple times.
Okay.
The deputy doesn't appear to have an immediate interest in the man's theories of time and space, but he is interested in his ID badges.
What is this?
What's that?
Nathan? Is that your first name?
Yes.
What's this? Hell, just like this where you work, a contractor or something?
Yeah, that's Huntsville Hospital. There's Huntsville Hospital, Caledine Brown. It's the green one. Redstone Arsenal. It's Army Material Command, and then NASA, Marshall Space Flight Facility. All part of a space program that deals with this.
Anyways, Mark, long story, the short story of the story, they try to tell him that these are fake, but then it comes back that they could be temporary, and they wanted to hold him overnight, but it ended up like he is who he is, says he claims. He owns private company, does asbestos renewal in a lot of these IDs. He was at those locations. So people just don't know how to take it. It's just interesting that we had millions of people are going to march into Area 51 and not a single person did it. And this one dude is like, yeah, I'll just go in. Time dilation. It's a real thing. And I'm not, it's interesting.
Time dilation is a real thing, but is Area 51 doing it? We don't know.
Who knows?
That.
Who knows?
Okay. Now, here's the thing. Those temporary badges he had, okay, what do you think I had when I went down to do my job for the Joint Chiefs? I had a temporary
probably
badge.
temporary badges, right?
Yeah, I had a temporary badge. Okay. What do you think I had when I got on board Virginia-class submarines to look at them, or Seawolf submarines as well, Los Angeles-class submarines, temporary badges. Okay. Everyone who visits a military facility, one way or the other, they end up with temporary badges. I didn't keep mine as a badge of honor. Okay, I gave them back like I should. He did not. Okay, and so he had a big stack of them, and
sorry, my bad. Okay, I apologize.
That's okay. I think it's a conspiracy. You're trying to stop me from talking.
No, keep talking. But okay, so these temporary badges you're supposed to get back, but this guy obviously didn't.
He didn't. So, okay, yes, he worked probably doing asbestos removal at Redstone Arsenal. Okay, he probably did all the other the work for the other locations he had badges for. Carrying them around with you in the car, that indicates some type of a mental issue, because you tend to think that, oh, look, I've got all these badges. They're still going to work for me. You know very well, you are told when you get a badge, this is a temporary. You got to turn it in when you leave at the public affairs office or whatever. Okay, you got to turn these badges back in before you leave. Okay, depending on what you did there. Now, he had to be in some very interesting facility, so he probably had to have a clearance for his company. Okay. There are company clearances and there's personal clearances, okay? The clearance for you as a person is different from the clearance you have when you work for a company, okay? I had a clearance for me. I didn't have a clearance for my company because other people who worked in my company couldn't see some of the stuff I did, okay? So obviously that means something to me. Having been in the arena for several decades, I can tell you that what he's done is a violation, and I'm glad the deputy said he's more interested in the badges than his story, okay? Because that is an act of fraud, at the very least, and he'll probably get a slap on the wrist for it because the guy's harmless. He's probably totally harmless. He just has a belief. He tries something. So what they ended up classifying, this is Nathan Hardiman, I think it is.
Yeah, Hardiman is correct. That is correct. And I found out his workplace. I was able to, you can call him and discuss this. And it's interesting because Hardiman, like you would think, first of all, I'm going to give a little pushback on your idea. If you would think Area 51 and places like he's in some top secret places, they would do a thorough investigation to find out if he was mentally ill beforehand. So that kind of like, I have that question. I'm not saying that he isn't. I'm just saying, well, is our system so inept that they couldn't identify this guy as somebody who might be interested and expose this, considering that they're so tight-lipped and so good at it in the past? Or is this guy acting rogue? Like you mentioned, he kept all these badges, probably wasn't supposed to. And by the way, it was his birthday, and he was at Area 51 on a holiday. So he was doing it on his own time, and he snuck into Area 51 because he believed, for some reason, that Redstone Arsenal also has a time dilation facility, he claimed. So either somebody is playing a prank on him, and he's like, oh, I'll go check it out. And they're like, oh, your IDs will get you in, or whatever. But they ended up letting him go, Mark.
I know, and they should. The guy was harmless. I mean, clearly, they probably classified him as having like a mental break or something like that, and that's probably why they let him go. And they just said, just don't come back, okay, Nathan? Just go, okay? We don't have that. Just go.
But what if, Mark? What if there?
I know.
Like that's.
I know. But the what ifs are all good, and I don't.
In 10 years, we're gonna be like, Nathan was right.
Yes, that's right. I don't deny that possibility. Okay, just like we might find out Bob Lazar was also right.
Well, I don't know about Bob Lazar. I got some questions.
Why? Now, why do you have?
I got some questions.
This guy here, clearly doing it for religious reasons, is okay. Come on.
Yeah, no, Bob Lazar. I mean, I question both of them, but like,
So do I.
I don't think Bob Lazar inherently is incorrect, but I think that he exaggerates things to get attention. I don't know why. I don't inherently like. I trust you, Mark. I know you. I met you, but Bob Lazar, I immediately get that. That spidey senses. It's interesting because yesterday or last weekend I had a guy on. His name is David Oates, and he does this whole reverse speech thing where your brain subconsciously implants messages of what you're truly feeling if you play the music backwards or the words backwards that you say. And the CIA interviewed him and did a whole demonstration on how this works, and it's incredible. He's got tens of thousands of these clips, and they basically tell you what the person is thinking, and you're like, I knew I was there's something off about that individual. Whether or not that's true, it's a phenomenon that's there, and there's evidence to support the theory, not meaning it's accurate, but it's interesting. And one of those people is Bob Lazar,
Yeah, no, I gotcha. And like I say, I don't buy Bob Lazar out of the box and just say, oh yeah, 100%, because he said element 115 was really important, but element 115, turns out it's not really anything different from element 114. Okay, so obviously element 115 is not something. I mean, it could have been. I think he talked about element 115 before we discovered element 115. Okay, if I'm right, and so he knows as a physicist that he probably is that the strong force that holds atoms together can support 118 protons, and we had only been up to a certain number at that point. I don't remember the number. And so eventually there would be an element 115 we could synthesize, and that's how it's produced, is by synthesis, not by natural processes. All right. So obviously the strong force could hold 118 protons in a nucleus. So eventually we're going to find it. Okay. Beyond that, you can make it temporarily, and it breaks back down to 118 or something less. Okay. But so 115 was going to be found one way or the other.
Well, Mark, we're getting close to that time, and I know it's going to be going around the moon for quite some time.
Too. Yeah.
And I'm kind of excited, and I know exactly what you're going to do when you get off of this broadcast. Like, how does your observatory work in daylight versus nighttime? Does it also work during daylight since you're zooming in, or does the light act as pollution? Like, how does that work, owning an observatory and being able to access this? If it's a sunny, shiny day with no clouds, are you able to beam into space still?
I wish I could. In fact, that would have been the greatest thing, But the truth is, in looking at this, you can see the moon there from Artemis, okay, and mission control on the right.
It's kind of oval shaped, people are saying, right?
Well, it's actually, you're right. It's an oblate spheroid. It's actually not perfectly round, and that's the physics of how it was formed. Okay, because it was orbiting a much larger object, namely the Earth, and they were both molten at the time. So anyway, when we talk about what we can see, SkyTour LiveStream can't see through blue sky, and the reason is because we're looking at atoms of the atmosphere that are actually emitting blue light to us, the blue light that the sun has. It's from the sun, and so that overpowers all the dim light. It doesn't overpower the moon. That's why you can see the moon during the day. It's a large object with a large cross-sectional area on the sky, so we can see it. Not as clearly as at night, but we can see it, right? But you can't hope to see any stars, most planets. However, you can see the planet Venus in the daytime sky. I actually taught classes on how to find Venus during the daylight, and we'd all look at the sky, and there it is. When one person sees it, then another, then another, then another. And that's just with your eyes, okay? If you know where to look, you can suddenly see it, and that's really cool. Now, training a telescope on it, you can also see it, because it's bright, has a large surface area compared to a star, which is a point of light, all right? And you'll never see a nebula during the day because those are so much dimmer. Most of those you can't even see without taking a time exposure with your telescope, So during the daytime, what we're doing here in Connecticut, where I live, I run the telescopes out in Arizona from here, and they're 2,600 miles away. Here in Connecticut, the telescope we're going to use, again, we used to have one here. This is where it started, and it moved them to Arizona. But I'm going to have another one out in the front yard again. And that one's going to be a solar observatory. We're going to be looking at the sun during blue sky days and the stars from Arizona at night. And the stars in Arizona, where we are located, unparalleled beauty. You just can't imagine. It'll make you cry when you stand there and look at the sky for the first time in some of these locations.
Well, some of your photographs are amazing, Mark. So I got one last question for you. So a lot of people have pointed to the lack of debris on the photographs of Earth of satellites as them being edited or fraudulent by NASA. Why is it that you feel that out of the 10,000 satellites that are out there, none of them are really visible in the photographs? Is it the photo that they selected, or is it just because they're so small you really can't make them up or see them? Make out what they are in those photographs. And are there satellites on the moon? Is the gravity strong enough to hold a satellite around the moon?
Yeah, let's go to the moon first. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and many others, Selene and Kaguya, Japanese, have all been circling the moon and are taking imagery and sending it back. So yes, the moon has 1/6 our gravity. So you can actually be lower altitude on the moon and have a perfectly circular orbit because there's no air to drag down your spacecraft. So you can actually be really low. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter went down to 30 miles above the moon in its orbit at one point and was taking pictures of the Apollo landing sites. That's pretty cool because you could see all the stuff on the moon with these. And again, that's the LRO, Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, LRO quick map. Look it up, go there, lose your whole day. Now let's go to Earth. Okay, you come to Earth now, okay, and you look at the fact that the Earth has been pelted with probably just as many meteorites as the moon. But wait, Mark, where's all the craters? Well, we have something that the moon doesn't, and that's an atmosphere. And our atmosphere and our tectonic activity has caused many craters to be destroyed, removed, eroded away. You could actually have a house that was built in an ancient crater and not even know it. Okay, so I have a overlay for Google Earth, which shows meteorite hits and asteroid hits on the Earth. And you'd be amazed to see these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of known impact craters on the Earth. Okay, and it's not just the big ones like Chicxulub, which is the one down in off the Yucatan Peninsula, but one off the northern coast of Greenland. There's several in Canada, others down in South America, in the ocean, Russia, all over the world. And remember, those plates were all kind of locked together and they drifted apart. Notice how South America and Africa kind of go right together? There's a reason for that. They were together and they separated over time from that mid-Atlantic spreading ridge that was pushing them all apart. All right? Just keep this in mind. The Earth is made up of all these frozen plates, frozen in time as far as we're concerned. And they're all separate from each other, but they're butted up against each other. They grind against each other. We get earthquakes. They ride up on each other. We get mountains. Okay? They push into each other and raise up mountains like the Himalaya mountains. India slammed into the Asian subcontinent over time, the Indian plate, and it hit and it pushed up the crust and crumpled it. And now we have Mount Everest and the other mountains there. Okay, so all these things occur over a long period of time, you know. And so what we see now is a snapshot in geological history of our Earth, and all the things that happen on the Earth serve to cover up and hide many of these craters and destroy them forever. Erosion, they're filled in by sediments. Give you an example, Devil's Tower in Wyoming. Okay, Devil's Tower in Wyoming is a tall, giant spire that people say it looks like a Native American tree trunk, right? It was sort of
I know what you're talking about. Like ancient trees. That's another conspiracy.
Exactly,
it's a giant ancient tree. It's petrified.
Exactly, but what it was that tower was underground. Well, wait a minute. Did it rise? No, the ground sank. So if there was a crater up 880 feet above your head, okay, it would have been eroded away over time. And all around you, in the valley near you and at the base of the Devil's Tower, is the evidence of this. The top of the tower was the first thing to be exposed. It's actually a lava. It's a lava intrusion. Okay, and when it dried, when it cured, when it cooled, Okay, it formed these giant crystals, 12 feet across or however big they are, hexagonal crystals. But they're not crystals like glass; they're crystals of rock. Okay, and it's not basalt. It's a it's porphyry. It's called, but don't worry about it. The point. Don't worry.
Never mind. It's not important.
Never mind. Never mind. Look over here. No, but the point is that this stuff, okay, was underground, and as erosion took over, and the tower was just rock hard, more solid than the ground around it, and the ground eroded down to here, leaving this tower behind. But the top of the tower, you can see the erosion starting at the top of the tower, and it gets less and less and less as it gets down to the bottom where it was more recently exposed in geological history. So the top of the tower looks really bad. The middle looks sort of okay. The bottom looks brand new. Okay, and that's because geologically it was just exposed. So that's that kind of process. Imagine that happening all over the planet all the time. Most of the craters are going to get lost to time because of that right there.
It'll be smoothed out. Yeah, very interesting. So, yeah, we're getting closer to that time. The moon is looking closer and closer and closer, Mark. We got 10 minutes left with you, and I wanted to give you a chance to talk about your amazing endeavor here. First of all, it's very cool that you do this. It is SkyTour LiveStream.
Oh, yeah.
And what is SkyTour LiveStream? Like, what is it that our listeners need to find out? Because if you're going to tune into, like, the moon expedition and all this other stuff, you definitely should have interest in SkyTour LiveStream, because it's the only, like, you have a monopoly on this. You're really, other than NASA, you're like the only person that's live streaming space all the time. Outer space.
Yeah, I mean, we can only stream when it's clear, but you're right. I mean, we love to stream. We have 2 telescopes. One's a very wide field system. And the nice thing is we take these gorgeous photos of the night sky. And now people are going to ask you, yeah, well, how much does it cost? Nothing. You can go right to our server. If you scroll down a little bit here on this page, Kristan, okay, keep going. Okay, stop. Go back up a little. Okay, see that? I want cool pictures. Try clicking on that. Let's see if it'll go on your machine. It should.
It should. Here you go.
Yeah. Okay. And this is a list of our folders. Now you say, well, what's that? Well, click on one.
We'll click on the most recent one.
Yeah.
There we go. Let's see. Cave Central Region. Let's go to East Nebula. What is East Nebula?
Let's go look.
Okay.
So click on the date and the time. There's the time. And then go to the process directory. Let's see what's in there. Nothing in there. Okay.
Fake news.
Fake news. All fake. Yeah, no.
Let's try a different one.
Yeah, we actually had a loss of 4 years of our data. And so just sort it by date, because that was 11/8 from years ago.
Okay.
See, go back and
here we go, 326.
There you go. That'll be there. Okay, so that okay, this is an example. So go into the these are the photos. Now they show, you should be able to see the photos, but you have it set to this showing display. There it is. That's the moon. Okay, that's a raw image of the moon that we took.
That's crazy. That's kind of cool. It looks like there's little cities on there, Mark. I'm just kidding. It's the white marks are pretty. It looks very similar to the United States in that way, where if you're on the plane at night, you see all the lights. You know.
Yeah. And so these are all photos people can download and take for free. We don't charge for them. Now, if they want, you can join our Patreon and support us. There's no doubt about it. Okay. These, let's see what you got here.
Boxford Nebula.
Oh, yeah, this is cool. Check that out. Go to process, then go to the picture. All right. And so now you see that fuzzy nebula right there in red.
Yeah, here.
That's really cool, yeah. And what I do is I tell people all about these, where this nebula originated, what happened, if we understand it. Okay, what's the blue light you see? What's the reddish brown light that's there? I mean, some of it's reflected light off of dust out in space.
What's the straight line here in the lower left-hand corner?
I'm glad you said that. Nearly every image we take will have some type of...
It's the firmament. No, I'm just kidding.
You're right. It's the dome. It's the glass acrylic dome with a crack. No, that's a satellite. And we have satellites going through many of our images. And most of them are Starlink. I can tell you that's a Starlink right there. I know that for a fact. I recognize the brightness and the angle. The Starlinks all do
They're
that.
little dot patterns. It's like a whole bunch of little dots. It's like dot 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 dot. dot.
Yeah, and so we're actually looking at, this is a time exposure, so we're looking at that now. If you go to a different nebula,
Let's go to the Soul Nebula.
Oh, yeah,
Why do they call it the Soul Nebula? Here we go. Process. Let's take a look. Well, here's a high end one. Oh my goodness, these look amazing, man.
Yeah, and these are photos that people can just take down and
This
enjoy.
it looks like a painting I want on my wall, Mark. How would I get this and have it turned into some kind of like image that I could have put on my wall? Is that something that because I know you had some interest in doing that in the past? Is that something that you do?
We have done it now. Yeah, we have a whole section where you can actually go and get fine art prints of everything we've done, and they're very, very high end. Okay, this is the raw data right out of the camera. This is what people see on the broadcast. All right, so it looked just like that during the live broadcast, and then they could take this image and they could say, I want that, and they can go to our fine art section, go find the image that's been processed, and they can print it on under glass, on a frame, on canvas, on metal. Okay, it's just endless. You can do a nice fine art frame, beautiful wooden frames, and everything. And that's something that is available to people as well, And they can also just if they join our Patreon at a certain level, I think Stargazer and above, which is like $10 a month, they get 4 highly processed finished images. This one is what we call digitally noisy. It's the raw image out of the camera, but we process it fully and get rid of all the noise and make it so that you can zoom in to the full extent and see it beautifully. And that will give us a final image that they get as one of the 4 they get as a Stargazer. At higher levels in the Patreon, you get access to all of the images we've ever done. It's really cool.
Here it is. You can
there
join
it is,
for free. We'll pull it up. And what's crazy is like you're doing this because you love astronomy. It's like me when I go to Bilderberg or I cover some weird stuff, or I go out there a lot of times pro bono because it's my passion. And if you can make money off of doing what you love, well then hell yeah. And people need to support you because this is amazing, especially with the frontier. There's really no competition in NASA other than Marc D'Antonio, right? And like, do you ever get to work with NASA? Do they ever call you and they're like, what do you got going on over there? Are you seeing this, Marc D'Antonio? What do you capture on your film?
Usually when they call, if they call, they want to know if I saw that certain thing flying through the sky that I shouldn't have seen. And that's for sure. I have seen many things in the sky that I shouldn't have seen. We caught one. You talked about UFOs making a right angle turn before.
Yeah.
Well, we have an all-sky camera that I built for the Sonoran installation. And we saw an object fly over, and it made a 45-degree angle instantly, bam, and went off to the other direction. And it was a very high point of light. What was that? It wasn't an aircraft, wasn't an airplane, had to be something else, and I'm not sure what it was. And then we saw something that made a tiny little circle in the sky, way up high. It was in 2 exposures. You saw the first half, and then the second half. It was a complete circle way up high in the sky. What was that? Well, it could be a black project because our airplanes have to have certain lighting on them, FAA mandated lighting. But
red and green, right? Always, if I see red or green, well, immediately. First of all, Dom, like Mark, when we're looking at this, UFOs don't come with like spotlights. They're not like, we have red and green lights or blue lights. If it has lights. The odds are it's probably not a UFO. And people are like, I see a light in the sky, and it's probably not a UFO.
It's probably not. Yeah, exactly. I get many photographs, time exposure, where someone takes like a 10-second exposure of the sky, and they have this dot of a red light dot moving through with a bright line of on either side. And occasional flashes of light, pinpoints of light that are possibly red or green. Maybe they just look white. That tells you a lot of things. You can gain a lot. You can get the altitude. You can get the speed. You can get the configuration, the direction it's moving, all from those lights. And it is a commercial aircraft of some kind, typically, all right? I've never seen anything not a commercial aircraft with those lights, you know? Now, would UFOs put fake lights on? Well, the question comes down to this. Why do they need lights at all?
Mm-hmm.
They don't need lights. What for? What's the purpose? You know, to call attention to themselves? You know, listen, if aliens are fallible, like I think they are, they're not going to call attention to themselves because they know we're dangerous. For instance, as a human being, when you set up a blind up in the Yukon up north to look for elk and you see a herd of elk, you're going to stay in your blind. You're not going to run out and say, excuse me, hey, put this, let me just bend down. I'm going to put this radio collar around your neck. Okay, yeah. There you go. Perfect. No, you're going to get trampled to death and killed. The elk is nowhere near the intelligence of a human, but they can still kill you. Okay, so that's how we are to alien life, perhaps. We're no intellectual danger to them, but we can kill them. All right? So I think that they do more surreptitious things like, you know, stick things up our noses or, you know, on our bodies.
We didn't even get into your story about that, but I just wanted to let our listeners know that I just signed up as a $10 Patreon supporter of Mark's SkyTour Live. You guys should go to that to SkyTourLive.com to support his good work.
Well,
and I
you.
know it's only
That's
$10.
nice.
Well, I mean, I blow that on a coffee, and and I'm gonna be honest on air. I still have a T-shirt of yours I didn't pay for, but I wear it all the time. You know, and I know I owe you $20 for it. I figure this is way of me making it even.
No,
I know we're friends. I'm like, yeah, I'll get you, and you just threw it at me, and I'm like, okay, you know, I know we're friends. It's a little different, but if you guys get a chance, go support Mark. I'm now myself a member of such a cool thing. I get Patreon.
Thanks, man.
I want my Patreon shout out, by the way. I'm just letting you know.
It's listed. You get one.
Patron does it for you as well, you know.
But you get one.
Yeah, that's very cool. Marc D'Antonio, thank you so much for joining us on today's broadcast. Let's talk for a second. You've moved like me. We've had to move networks, right? We've outgrown the platforms we were on.
Yeah.
And you've moved to, is it on X?
It is.
Okay, cool. Because it's very interesting because I just heard from Race Hobbs, and they're going to be broadcasting the Rundown Live starting soon. So I'm really excited. So we'll be hanging out again, and you have some speaking engagements coming up. We got 2 minutes here. Let's talk about where you're speaking coming up.
Okay, Thursday of this week, I'm in Arkansas until the 12th. I'm a keynote speaker at the Ozark Mountain UFO Conference. Then
is that under the Ozark Mountain where all the secret stuff is? Or
yes, inside.
Are you familiar with the Ozark Mountains? Of course you are, yeah.
Yeah, and then beginning of May, I might be in Sierra Vista, Arizona for another conference, but we'll see what happens. They want me there, and we'll see if we can get there. End of May, I'm in Indian Wells near Palm Springs in California for the Contact in the Desert. I'll be doing 3 lectures and 2 sky watches with my friend Ben Hansen. And June 20th, I'll be in Bloomington, Illinois at a 1-day conference. And then in July, I'll be at the Roswell Museum talking. And
the Roswell Museum?
Yep. It's not the Roswell UFO incident.
Where is that located?
Museum. Roswell, New Mexico.
I think I'm going to come out to that one in July. I've been looking for a reason to hang out with you, and Contact has just gotten. I know I'm pressed, but still, it's like we're talking $1,000 just to go out there to cover the event, which I've gotten some great footage, and we've done some great interviews. Which, by the way, Mark, our interview is going to be released sometime this year. I've been doing small segments. I wanted to put out one giant documentary, but I'm putting out a bunch of little mini segments. Very cool, and some of them are documentary-esque, and some of them are, a little bit, because every one of you guys had a different story when I interviewed a couple dozen people. It was a very good opportunity.
That was great, yeah. And then in August, I'll be in Alamosa, Colorado for the Snippy conference. Snippy is a horse that had a UFO encounter that I think killed him. And so this will be the second year they want me there. And we're in talks with them. We may potentially be having a 3rd observatory site there. And it's at 7,500 feet. And the skies in that location are among the darkest in the whole United States.
Marc D'Antonio, thank you so much for joining us. Let us know once again, where can people find you?
SkyTourLive.org. We are a nonprofit organization. You can find me there, and if you hit the contact button, you can write me a message, and you'll find me.
All right, guys, tune in. Ground Zero Plus. The replay will be tonight at midnight. Check us out. Marc D'Antonio is our guest. Thank you again, Marc, for joining us on the Rundown Live. We'll be coming on X. So if you guys haven't checked that out, check that out. Also, fringeit.co. And find us on Spotify, therundownlive.com. You guys have a good one. This one will be cataloged soon.
Do you come to Milwaukee often?
Actually, it's pronounced Milwaukee, which is Algonquin for the good land.